How you doing there? Welcome back to Babble on Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Ayin Beis, Daf 72 of Masechta Menachos. Friends, Daf 72, we wrap up the sixth parak of Masechta Menachos. Gewaltige Daf, the first kind of smaller section of today's Daf discusses what I called Omer okay fines. The things that are not ideal, I wouldn't really call them b'di'evid. B'di'evids are more like you shouldn't have done it this way, but if you did it, it's fine. These are more like what if you don't have. It's like, okay, fine. You can use stocks. You could do it b'tumah if you need to. You could use hard or what. These are like the okay fines, you could do it kind of things. And then the bigger sugya of today is going to be harvesting the Omer during the day. Right? Of course, we know from earlier in the parak that the Omer, wow, it's crazy that we're moving on from this parak already. Right? This was a great parak. Right? We referencing earlier in the parak when we talked about harvesting the Omer at night. And but we're wrapping this up, and we're moving on to some exciting stuff, in my opinion. I mean, I think we're going to start getting into the nitty gritty of Menachos, which I think is just. Am I excited about it? I don't know if excited is the right word, but I feel like it's long overdue. We've been learning Menachos already for close to 2.5 months, and we still haven't really talked about like frying the marcheshes and the machvas and baking the maifasoner and the challah. Like we haven't really gotten into that, so I think it's time. So I am looking forward to it. Anyways, back to our program. Harvesting the Omer during the day. So we know that the Omer is harvested at night. Of course, we know that we start counting at night. Said it's Shabbos Tamimos, but you only start counting after you harvest. Of course, as we know from earlier in the parak. So harvesting is at night. What if you did it during the day? And then this also has a direct impact on, can you harvest the Omer on Shabbos? And we'll see the relationship between if you say that you can or cannot harvest the Omer during the day, that has an impact on whether harvesting the Omer is going to be Doche Shabbos. So very interesting daf, in my opinion. I'm looking forward to learning it together. Let's do it. Friends, we begin on Daf Ayin Beis, Omid Aleph, on the second line of the Omid. Kotzrin mipnei anatios mipnei Ovel or Avel, umipnei Beis Amedrash. We said that, of course, while you are not allowed to harvest the Chameshes Minei Dagin prior to the offering of the Omer. However, there were some exceptions. For example, Mipnei Anetios, we explained that yesterday, according to the first Pshat in Rashi, which is that if you have a field with trees in them, and there's also some wheat growing in there, and maybe the wheat, I think, is detrimental for the trees, so you can harvest them, in order to just kind of tidy up the field, that would be okay. There was another Pshat in Rashi that I didn't get into. It has to do with kilayim. If you have a field with kilayim, so you want to remove the wheat in order to make it not kilayim. So now that is a mitzvah. Additionally, it says, right, Ovel, in order to be menachem avelim, or Beis Hamedrash, in order to clear space for Beis Hamedrash. So these are all mitzvahs. So we say that essentially you're allowed to harvest wheat if it's in support of a mitzvah. How come? The answer is, because when we talk about the Omer, Reishis Ktsirchem, and we say that the first harvesting has to be for the Omer, that specifically when it's Reishis Ktsirchem, your harvest, when the harvest is for you, so then hold off until the Omer. If the harvest is not for you, if the harvest is for the Rabbanu Shalom, for a mitzvah, because of Kilayim, or because of Minicha Mavelim, or because of Beis Hamedrash, so then it is okay to harvest prior to the Omer. And when you do that, when you harvest for these mitzvahs, so don't bundle them together, rather just leave them lying there. Because yes, it's true, you're allowed to harvest these grains before the Omer if it's, let's say, for a Beis Hamedrash, but do the minimum. If you have to clear out the stalks so that people have a place to sit, okay, clear them out, but then leave the stalks there. If you can leave the stalks there, leave them there. Don't start bundling them and putting them away. And do what you got to do, no more, no less. So therefore, if you can, don't bundle them together. Just kind of leave them there. Again, to the full extent, to the extent possible, we do as little as possible. Mitzvahs Omer lahavi min akama. The mitzvah of the Omer, said the Mishnah, is to bring from standing stalks, so to harvest standing stalks. When the pasuk says in last week's parsha, how was last week's parsha? Parsha's Vayikra. Mamish, unbelievable, right? Knocked your socks off. What did we have there? We had Ola, Menachos, Shlomim, Chatos, Osham. What more can you ask for, Chevra? Well, like Meiser Behema? That would have been. Well, what would we have done with ourselves if the Rebbeinu Shalom threw Meiser Behema into Parashat Sefer Vayikra? That would be next level. But even without Meiser Behema, with what was there, was mamish the best. Akoponim. So in last week's parsha, it says V'imtakriv minchas bikurim. So it said in last week's parsha in Perek Beis, when it was talking about the Menachos, it talked about our carbon mincha, the minchas haomer, the topic of this Perek. V'imtakriv minchas bikurim. How come it says V'imtakriv? Because at the end of that pasuk it also says Takriv es minchas bikurecha. So why at the beginning does it say V'im takriv, and then like 10 words later it says Takriv again? Favos. How come? Because really, ideally, you should bring the Omer from standing grain attached to the ground. How do we know that if you could not find standing grain, so nishgeferlich, bring the Omer from lying down grains? Talmud lomar, right, meaning already harvested barley. Talmud lomar, takriv, it says takriv, bring. You don't have the standing, bring the lying. Dover acher takriv, the fish mitzvah lavim in alach. You want to bring soft and squishy barley. Minaychim lo matzah min alach yavim min ayavish. I don't know that if you don't have soft and squishy barley, so bring what you have. If it's dry, it's fine. Nish geferlich. Talmud lomer takriv, bring. Tavracher takriv. Fish mitzvah liktzo balayla. Ideally, you should be harvesting at night, as we know. Minaychim niktzo bayom kosher. I don't know that even if you harvest it during the day, nish geferlich. V'doiches Shabbis and ochit. It's doche. The shaila is what's doche Shabbos. We're gonna assume for the next while that harvesting is doche Shabbos. Harvesting is doche Shabbos, as we saw earlier in the parak. The question is, according to the opinion in this brisa, the author of this brisa, is harvesting doche Shabbos. Anyways, we're going to see plenty of this moving forward. For the foreseeable future, until towards the end of the daf, I'm going to be saying what's doche Shabbos. Harvesting the Omer is doche Shabbos. So we're saying that, right? So how do we know? Again, minayin shem niktzor bayom. How do we know that if the Omer was harvested during the day, kosher? It is kosher. V'doche Shabbos, and it's also doche Shabbos. Talmud Omer takriv. Again, the pasuk it said takriv, bring. Takriv kolshu, bring. Kolshu, whatever it is, even if it's from the sheaves that are lying down. Takriv mikol makom, from wherever, even if you have to bring it from further away, from Yerushalayim in Eretz Yisrael, but further away from Yerushalayim, right? As we said, it should be soft and squishy, but if you need to do further away and it's drier, that's okay too. Takriv, vafilu b'Shabbos, even on Shabbos. Takriv, vafilu b'Tumah, even if the congregation is tamei or the kohanim are tameim. Takriv, bring it. So we see all of these Omer okay finds that, even if it's dry, okay, if all you have is dry, bring it. All you have is lying down, bring it. If you have to do it during the day, bring it. It's doche Shabbos, right? Bring it even on Shabbos, even if you're tummy, bring it. In all these cases, bring it. Chevre, I have noticed a few times recently, unfortunately, I sometimes make mistakes in the Babble on Talmud dafs. Mistakes, not like mistakes like I understood something wrong. I'm sure there's plenty of that. But sometimes for example, yesterday, I had said, if you were wondering, I had said yesterday that there's no truma and meiser for vegetables. That should never have been said. It was a mistake to the extent that what I meant to say is there's no trumas and meiser for peah. There's no truma and meiser for peah, and therefore, right, we were saying yesterday, whatever, out of context, but yesterday we were saying that that if you separate peah from trumas from vegetables, it's very nice because you're leaving stuff for the poor people, but then they're not going to separate trumas and meisers because you don't separate trumas and meisers from peah. I had said you don't separate trumas and meisers from vegetables. That's a mistake. You do separate trumas and meisers from vegetables, at least midrabanan. Now, why am I saying this? Just in case you were wondering yesterday and you were confused by that, you were right to be confused. But I was thinking maybe, what do you think? Maybe I was thinking if I notice, because I don't always listen to all of the dafs afterwards. I try to, but I do try to listen to them while I'm getting something to eat or something when I leave the house. If I leave the house, anyways. So I was thinking maybe if I notice that, oops, dag nabbit. I noticed a few of these recently. Chaval, I feel bad when it happens, but maybe I'll just write a little note, like in WhatsApp, like correction, daf whatever. At this and this minute, I said this. What I meant to say was that. So maybe I'll consider doing that if I'm listening and I say, "Dang it, I said that wrong," because it happens. I guess as I'm talking, I just say the wrong thing comes out of my mouth, even though I didn't mean to say it. So maybe I'll do that. Chevra, when you're listening to the daf, sometimes probably I say something and you're just wondering, wait, that doesn't make any sense, probably, right? You might be right. So if I say something and you notice it doesn't make sense, feel free to ask in the WhatsApp group. I'll obviously clarify it, and it could be taka. If you're thinking about it, it could be other people thinking about it as well. Okay, moving on. Friends, now we move on to the next section of today's daf, harvesting the Omer during the day and on Shabbos. Nitzar bayom kosher. So we had said in the brisa that we just had, as well as in our Mishnah, we had said Nitzar bayom kosher, that if the minchas Omer is harvested during the day, right, it should be harvested at night, but if it's harvested during the day, it's kosher. And we also said that it's doche Shabbos. Now, but we learn in a Mishnah in Masechta Megillah, Kol alayla kosher liktzias Omer v'lahaktir chalam bevarim. The Mishnah says in Masechta Megillah that all night, Kol alayla kosher, all night is kosher, liktzias Omer, for harvesting the Omer, amazing, and for burning the fats and the limbs of korbanos that were slaughtered that day. Ze'aklal, this is the rule. Darvish mitzvaso bayom kosher kol hayom. Anything whose mitzvah is during the day is kosher all day. For example, shchita of a korban, zrikas adam of a korban. Those things can be done all day. Darvish mitzvaso balayla, something that the mitzvah that it should be done by nacht, at night. Kosher kol hayom is kosher all night. Katani laila dimi diyom, and we juxtapose the night to the day. Madiyom balayla lo, just like the mitzvahs of the day cannot be done at night. For example, right, shchita, zrikas adam cannot be done at night, only during the day. After laila, bayom nami lo. Also, harvesting the Omer as well as hektar chalavim bevarim cannot be done the following day, right? Just like the things whose mitzvah is all day cannot be done that night. Also, those things that their mitzvah is all night cannot be done the following day. So, on the one hand, we said that you could harvest the Omer, right? We said at night, right? We said Niksar bayom kosher. Even if you harvest the Omer during the day, let's assume it's talking about the 16th, so it's kosher nonetheless. And yet, we have the Mishnah in Masechta Megillah that says that the Omer, the harvesting of the Omer is an example of something that you could do all night. You could do it all night. You cannot do it the following day. Rabba Lokasha Ha Rebbe Bahar Belazar Reb Shimon says Rabba that this is a machlokes actually. Machlokes between Rebbe and Reb Belazar Reb Shimon. Rebbe says that the Omer can be harvested the next day. Reb Belazar Reb Shimon says the Omer cannot be harvested the next day. The Sanya that we learned in the Brayso, Omer Omed Umakriv Minchas HaOmer, if the Kohen was standing and he was offering the Minchas HaOmer, V'nitmes biyado, and it became tamei in his hand. So what do you do? Here is the Kohen, he's offering the Minchas HaOmer and it becomes tamei. Now technically speaking, it's a korban sibur, it could be offered betuma. But what does he do? Im yesh acheres omrim lo have acheres tachteh. Now this is the opinion of Rebbe, as we're going to see in a minute. So Rebbe is saying, as we're going to see in a minute, it's the opinion of Rebbe. So Rebbe is saying that what do you do? The mincha, the flour became tamis. We say, you know what? Is there more barley? Can you, even if you have to run and go harvest it, can you harvest some more barley? Yes? Great. Why don't you do that? Go and get some more barley. Even if it means that you're gonna have to harvest it, go quickly harvest it, and let's do it with tahor barley flour. V'imlav, if there's no other barley, so omrim lo have it pikeach v'shtok divrei Rebbe. And if not, if there's no other barley to bring, so we say, hey, be smart and keep quiet and just quietly offer the mincha in a state of tumah. Why do that quietly? So that people don't get the wrong idea and think that even by an individual, by the mincha of a yachid of an individual could be offered b'tumah. We don't want people to get the wrong idea. So we say, okay, if it's tamei, you can nonetheless go ahead. It's a public korban, you could offer b'tumah, but do it quietly without fanfare so that nobody sees and draws the wrong conclusions for themselves. Divrei Rebbe, Reb Elazar Reb Shimon, Omer says, Reb Elazar Reb Shimon, there is no option to harvest a new Omer today. There's no option to harvest more barley today. That would have had to have been done the night before. And therefore, ben kach uven kach omrim lo have pikeach v'shtok. Reb Elazar Reb Shimon says there is no option to go and harvest new barley. Rather, we say, look, it's a communal mincha, it's a communal offering, and it can be offered b'tumah, just without any fanfare, just go and offer the minchas ha'omer b'tumah. Shekola omer sheniktzah shelo k'mitzvasai pasul, because it says Reb Elazar Reb Shimon that any mincha, any omer, not any mincha, any omer that is harvested shelo k'mitzvasai, not the proper way. What's the mitzvah? The mitzvah is at night. The mitzvah is to harvest at night, and if it's not harvested at night, if it's not done k'mitzvaso as it's supposed to be done at night, pasul. It's pasul. You can't offer it the next day. Okay, and I'm sorry. You can't. The mincha, of course, is offered the next day. You can't harvest it the next day. Okay, so azoy. So we see it's taka machloikes between Rebbe and Reb Elazar Reb Shimon. Rebbe says that the Omer should be harvested at night, but if not, you can harvest it the next day. And Rebbe is also the author of would be the opinion in our Mishnah, where it says that, what does it say in our Mishnah? It says that mitzvaso likso balayla, nikso bayom kosher. You should harvest at night, but if you harvest during the day, nisht geferlach, it is kosher. And Rebbe would also be the opinion expressed in our Brisa, where we said that it can be harvested during the day. I hope I didn't say offered. Harvested during the day. Obviously, it could be offered during the day. That's when it's offered, on the 16th during the day. But even harvested during the day, Reb Elazar Reb Shimon says it has to be harvested at night. It cannot be harvested the following day, and therefore the Mishnah in Masechta Megillah that says that the harvesting of the Omer is at night, and it's pasul the next day, it can't be harvested the next day. That is the opinion of Reb Elazar Reb Shimon. Omer Rabba bar Chana Omer Reb Yochanan Reb Elazar Reb Shimon B'shitas Rabbi Akiva Rabba Shel Aviv Omer. Okay, here we go. Very interesting. We're going to work through an interesting sugya over here. Be'etzem. Okay, maybe let's just kind of read. Let's read a bit, maybe. I don't know how I'm going to explain this yet. I haven't decided. Let's start by reading. Omer Rabba Bachana Omer B'Yechanan. Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon, okay. B'shitas Rabbi Akiva Rabbo Shel Aviv Omer. Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon was, of course, the son of Reb Shimon ben Yochai. Reb Shimon ben Yochai was a Talmud of Rabbi Akiva, of course. Now, Rabbi Akiva, let's go weiter. The Tanah that we learn in the Mishnah, Klal Omer Rabbi Akiva, that Rabbi Akiva has a rule, Kol Melach she'ev shelo la'asos me'erev Shabbos eina doches haShabbos. Let's go weiter. V'savilak Rabbi Yishmael, and he also Rabbi Yishmael, the Omer K'tzias Omer mitzvah, that K'tzias Omer is a mitzvah. The Tanan, Rabbi Yishmael Omer ma'charish rishus, avkotzer rishus, yotza K'tzira Omer shehi mitzvah. Fine. Sheesh. I don't know how to explain this yet. It's fine. I know what's going on. We'll explain it just fine. But there's like a few like things over here, and like each thing thinks. I'm thinking maybe I'm going to explain this outside. Okay. Here's the thing. Reb Elazar Reb Shimon was a Talmud of his father, who was a Talmud of Rabbi Akiva. There's a Mishnah with an opinion of Rabbi Akiva that Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon holds like. We'll talk about that Mishnah in just a second. Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon also holds like another Mishnah, Masechta Shvius. Like he holds like the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael. We'll talk about this Mishnah in a minute. Rabbi Yishmael says that it's a mitzvah, that harvesting the Omer is a mitzvah, and it's Doche Shabbos. Those two things together are going to show us and explain to us why Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon, the fact that he holds like Rabbi Akiva, the fact that he holds like Rabbi Yishmael, why he also holds that the Omer must be harvested at night, it can't be harvested during the day. Great. Rabbi Akiva. There's a Mishnah in Masechta Shabbos, and Daf Kuf Lamed, the first Mishnah in Perek Rabbi Eliezer de Mila. There's a machlokes in that Mishnah, Masechta Shabbos, between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Eliezer, an important machlokes about machshirei mitzvah dochenes haShabbos. Specifically in the context of bris milah. Of course, the milah itself is doches Shabbos, but what about if the milah was supposed to happen in a particular place, but the moel doesn't have his knife there? There's no erev, and of course you can't carry in Rosh Hashanah, and the knife is not in the place. So what do? Can the moel go and bring his knife to the place of the milah? So Rabbi Eliezer says yes, he can. Bringing the knife over, or even lighting a fire in order to make the knife bichlal is also doche Shabbos. Rabbi Eliezer says not just the mitzvah is doche Shabbos, but also the machshirei mitzvah are doche Shabbos, and therefore the moel can bring his knife to the place of the milah. Rabbi Akiva disagrees, and his opinion is no. When we say that a mitzvah is doche Shabbos, only the mitzvah is doche Shabbos. Anything that could have been prepared and could have been done before Shabbos must have been done before Shabbos. And therefore, the knife should have been brought to the place before Shabbos. It cannot be brought to the place on Shabbos. The milah itself is doche Shabbos. Bringing the knife to the place of the milah is not going to be doche the melacha of hotzah on Shabbos. That's the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. That's Rabbi Akiva's opinion over there. And Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon holds like his father's Rabbi Akiva in that regard. Next Mishnah. There's a Mishnah in Masechta Shvius, the fourth Mishnah in Masechta Shvius. There's a machlokes in that Mishnah between, I think it's the Tanakama, I think it's the Chachamim, and Rabbi Yishmael. The pasuk says, "Sheishes yom tavod uvashvi tishbos becharish uvakotzer tishbos." The pasuk says in Parshas Kisisa, "Becharish uvakotzer tishbos." Why? The pasuk in Parshas Kisisa says, "Don't plow and don't harvest on Shabbos." Of course, you don't plow and don't harvest on Shabbos. Lo saisukom. What was it? Lo saisukom malacha. Lo saisukom. I don't know. Lo saisukom malacha. Ato vincha v'techa. Whatever it is. You're not allowed to do malacha on Shabbos. Obviously, don't plow and don't harvest. That's pretty malacha-y. Why point out don't plow and don't harvest on Shabbos? So Rabbi Shmuel's opinion is, what it's teaching is just like harvesting, just like plowing, by definition is volitional, is a rishus, there is never a mitzvah in the Torah to plow. There is never an instance where a person goes out to his field to plow because he's doing a mitzvah. Nowhere in the Torah says that there's obviously you have to plow for certain, plowing is an important thing to do, but the point is that there's no mitzvah in the Torah that involves plowing. And just like plowing by definition is a volitional activity, it's always something that you choose to do, you're never obligated at any particular moment, you have a mitzvah now to plow. So also, the harvesting that we're talking about on Shabbos, right? It's saying, tishbos, don't plow on Shabbos. Also, don't harvest on Shabbos. The harvesting that we're talking about is the harvesting just like the plowing, volitional harvesting. You can't volitionally harvest on Shabbos. You can't choose to harvest on Shabbos. You can't choose to plow. You can't choose to harvest. But there is an example of harvesting that is not volitional, that you're actually going out to harvest because it's a mitzvah to harvest, and that is to harvest the barley for the Omer. That is allowed on Shabbos. Harvesting the barley for the Minchas Omer is a mitzvah, and it's doche Shabbos. And that's what it's saying. Volitional plowing, volitional harvesting is also on Shabbos. Harvesting that is a mitzvah, like harvesting the Omer, you're allowed to do on Shabbos, doche Shabbos. So those two things together, the fact that Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon holds like Rabbi Akiva, and the fact that Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon holds like Rabbi Shmuel, will explain to you why Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon also holds that the Omer must be harvested at night. It can't be harvested any other time, right? Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon had said, Shekol Omer shenikza shelo k'mitzvaso pasul, that any Omer that is harvested improperly, non-ideally, not at night when it should be harvested, is pasul. Now, how do we know this? Because Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon holds like Rabbi Akiva. Well, let's even start with Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon holds like Rabbi Shmuel that harvesting the Omer is a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah to harvest the Omer, and it's a mitzvah that you could do on Shabbos. It's doche Shabbos. Now, Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon also holds like Rabbi Akiva that even when it comes to mitzvah that's doche Shabbos, anything that could have been done before Shabbos must be done before Shabbos. Just like by bris milah, even though the milah itself is doche Shabbos, but bringing the knife could have been done before Shabbos, and therefore must be done before Shabbos, that's not doche Shabbos. Therefore, if Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon were to hold like Rebbe holds, that you can harvest the Omer shelo k'mitzvaso, which would mean that you could even harvest the Omer before Shabbos, well then you'd have to harvest the Omer before Shabbos. And therefore, so Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon holds like Rabbi Akiva that if something could have been done before Shabbos, it has to be done before Shabbos. Therefore, if Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon holds like Rabbi Shmuel, that the Omer is doche Shabbos. So therefore, the fact that Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon holds like Rabbi Shmuel that the Omer is in fact doche Shabbos must mean, therefore, that it cannot be done any time other than at night. Because if it could be done any other time, well then Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon would say that it would have had to have been done before Shabbos. Since it can be done before Shabbos, it doesn't have to be done at night. If he were told that way, then it would have had to have been done before Shabbos, because he holds like Rabbi Akiva that anything that could be done before Shabbos must be done before Shabbos, in which case it wouldn't be doche Shabbos. Therefore, the fact that Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon holds like Rabbi Shmuel that the Omer is, harvesting the Omer is doche Shabbos, and he also holds like Rabbi Akiva that only things that must be done on Shabbos can be done on Shabbos. It means, therefore, that the harvesting of the Omer must be done at night, and it can't be done during the day, and therefore it must be done Motzei Yom Tov Rishon at night. And if that's a Shabbos, you do it on Shabbos. It could not have been done before Shabbos. Okay, fine. Drink a little bit of water. Amazing. Yeah, so that was just like a bunch of stuff, different mishnayos, different opinions that all kind of had to be brought together, which is why I was trying to think, do I read through it, explain it one at a time, explain everything together, and then read it inside? But anyways, okay, so I guess that's what happened. I explained everything, now we're going to read inside. So again, Omer Rabbi Chana, says Rabbi Chana, Omer Rabbi Yechanan, Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, Beshitas, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Shel Aviv Amra, that Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon holds like Rabbi Akiva, who was the Rebbe of his father, Rabbi Shimon, that Titnan, that we learn in the Mishnah in Masechta Shabbos, Klal Am Rabbi Akiva, that Rabbi Akiva has a general rule that that even when you have a situation that something can be docha Shabbos, like Mila, or in our case, like harvesting the Omer, if something could have been done before Shabbos, it has to be done before Shabbos. Now also, V'savar Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon also holds like Rabbi Shmuel de Omer, who says, Ketziras Omer mitzvah, that Ketziras Omer is a harvesting the Omer is a mitzvah, and it's docha Shabbos. The Tanan that we learn in a Mishnah, Masechta Shabbos, Rabbi Shmuel Omer says, Rabbi Shmuel, Macharish Rishos, just like, right, it says, Bacharish Bakotzer Tishbos. How come? Because it's saying this, just like harvesting by definition, no, just like plowing by definition is volitional, is optional. There is never a mitzvah to harvest, to plow per se. So Avkotzer Rishos, also the pasuk of what's Asur on Shabbos, what you have to rest from on Shabbos, is volitional. Yotza Kitzira Omer, to the exclusion of the harvest of the Omer, Shehi mitzvah, because that is a mitzvah and it is docha Shabbos. You're not obligated to rest from that harvesting. That is docha Shabbos. Now, Visagadaitich Nikza Shalok mitzvah so kosher, and if it enters your mind that Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon therefore held that even when the Omer is harvested shalok mitzvah, so i.e. not at night, it can be harvested during the day. Well then, amai dochi Shabbos, why is it then docha Shabbos? If it could have been done before Shabbos, it would have had to have been done before Shabbos. Niktzerei me erev Shabbos, it should have been harvested on erev Shabbos. Rather, elam dochi Shabbos, from the fact that Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon holds that the Omer, the harvesting of the Omer, is doche Shabbos, shmamina nikso shalok mitzvah, so apostle. Clearly, therefore, right from the fact that harvesting the Omer is doche Shabbos, according to Elazar Reb Shimon, he must hold that the harvesting of the Omer must be done at night, and if at night it is Shabbos, so be it, and it will be doche Shabbos. If it could have been done any other time, it must have had been done at some other time to avoid doing it on Shabbos. But he doesn't say that. It's doche Shabbos. It has to be done at night. The Rebbe lav told me to do Reb Shimon, but now the Gemara asks, wait a second. Rebbe, who disagrees, Rebbe, who says that the Omer can be harvested during the day, right? He's the one who says the Omer can be harvested during the day. So, if that's the case, he should, all right, he's also a student of Reb Shimon. And Reb Shimon was a student, of course, of Rabbi Akiva. And therefore, Rebbe should agree with Rabbi Akiva. I would expect Rebbe to agree with Rabbi Akiva that if the Omer can be harvested during the day, it should be harvested before Shabbos, and it should not be doche Shabbos. Now, we're saying that our Mishnah and the Brisa earlier was the opinion of Rebbe, where it says that it can be offered during the day, and also that it's doche Shabbos. So now what? So we're saying, right, we just had a whole great argument. Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon holds like Rabbi Akiva. If you could have done it before Shabbos, you'd have to do it before Shabbos. Now, Rebbe, we're saying that the Mishnah and the Brisa earlier are Rebbe, that you can harvest even during the day, but also that it's doche Shabbos. But if Rebbe holds that you can harvest during the day, and he was a Talmud of Reb Shimon, as we'll see in a second, and as we've seen in the past, and Reb Shimon is a student of Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Akiva says that if you could do it before Shabbos, you must do it before Shabbos, and it's not doche Shabbos. So why does Rebbe say that it is doche Shabbos? Do it before Shabbos, according to Rebbe. V'atani, right? Again, Rebbe lav tamid the Reb Shimon. Is Rebbe not a student of Reb Shimon? Who? V'atani, we learn in the Brisa. Omer Rebbe says, Kishayinu lemedin teire eitzel Reb Shimon bitkoa. Says Rebbe that when we would learn Torah by Reb Shimon in Tkoa. I remember when we had this Gemara on Daf Kuf Mem Zayin of Masechta Shabbos. And we gave a shout out to our great friend, Rabbi Sruli, because Rabbi Sruli, I believe, lives in Tkoa. And I think he pointed out, or maybe even Ezi Carlson, is that his name? We're saying that? These are our friends from many years ago, like 6 years ago. Ezi, I think his last name is Carlson. I think he maybe pointed out, maybe Taki even also lives in Tkoa, that I think that there's two tekoas. There's a tekoa where people live, and there's also, I think, another tekoa, I think, in the north. Al kol panim, Rabbi Yisrael, if you hear this, hi. So where are we? So Rebbe says when we would learn by Reb Shimon in tekoa. Now we'll go weiter a second, but the point is that Rebbe was a Talmud of Reb Shimon. Rebbe was basically a Talmud of all of the Talmidei Rebbe Akiva. So Ayinu Mailin Lo Shemin, we would bring. So when we would again Sheinu L'meidin Torah Itzel Reb Shimon b'Tekoa, we would study by Reb Shimon in Tekoa. Ayinu Mailin Lo Shemin Valontis, and it was Shabbos, and nonetheless we would bring to him oil and a towel. Michotzer Lagag, we would bring it from a chatzer to a roof. Migag L'Kaipiv, Mekaipiv L'Kaipiv. Acher Adshe Anumagin L'Mayon, until we would get all. Basically, the point is that Reb Shimon said that in terms of being considered one chutzner, it would be no problem to move these items from a chutzner to a roof, and from a roof to a karpiv, which is like an enclosed area, until we basically made it all the way to the ma'ayan. Shanirochatzimbo, that we would wash in it, that we go to the mikveh in it. No, so we see that Rebbe was a Talmud of Reb Shimon as well, is the point, and therefore, if Rebbe is a Talmud of Reb Shimon is a Talmud of Rebbe Akiva, shouldn't Rebbe also say that, hey, if the Omer could be harvested during the day, it should have been harvested before Shabbos rather than Bidoche Shabbos? Reb Shimon. Well, Rebbe holds like a different sheet of Reb Shimon, very interesting. The Sani we learned about Omer Reb Shimon, Borei Kamo Chaviva Mitzvah B'Shaita. Come and see how gewaldig a mitzvah is at its proper time. How do we know that a mitzvah is super gewaldig at its proper time? Sharei heter chalovim ve'varim ksherim kol halayla v'lohoya mamtin le'nat shetechshach. Because on Shabbos, we offer all sorts of korbanos on Shabbos. Korban Tamid, Shel Shachar, Shel Ben Arbaim, Musafin. We offer these korbanos. And not only do we slaughter them on Shabbos and do Zrikas Adam on Shabbos, we even burn the fats and the limbs on Shabbos. Now, Hekter Chalavim Be'varim, burning the fats and the limbs on Shabbos, are Ksherim Kol Halayla. You could do it all night. Motzei Shabbos, you can burn it all night. And yet, we are Doche Shabbos in order to burn the fats and limbs on Shabbos. Even though you could wait until Motzei Shabbos to burn them. It's Ksherim Kol Halayla, but we burn them on Shabbos. We're Doche Shabbos to burn the fats and limbs because we want to do it right away. We want to slaughter the korbanis, do Zrikas Adam, and right away burn the emurim, burn whatever is being burnt. I mean, these are probably olas are probably all burnt entirely. Anyways, so burn whatever needs to be burned, and we do that. It's Docha Shabbos, even though it could be you could wait until Motzei Shabbos. It would be kosher, but no, we're Docha Shabbos in order to do a mitzvah on time, chaviva mitzvah b'shaita, and therefore Rebbe argues. Right, we argue that Rebbe holds like a different sheet of Reb Shimon. That even though yes, Rebbe would say that you can harvest Omer during the day, and you could have theoretically harvested it even before, even on Erev Shabbos. But we'd rather do it. But really, the mitzvah is at night. The mitzvah is at night on the 16th. And even if it's Shabbos, and therefore chaviva mitzvah b'shaita, because a mitzvah at its proper time is more beloved. Therefore, just like the hektar chalam mevarim are override Shabbos, are docha Shabbos. So also the harvesting of the Omer is docha Shabbos, even though it could technically be done during the day. So therefore, Rebbe holds like that again. Sovla kiidach Rebbe Shimon. Rebbe holds like a different sheet of Reb Shimon. The Sanya Omer Reb Shimon says, Reb Shimon, Borei kama chaviva mitzvah b'shaita, come and see how gewaldig a mitzvah at its proper time is. Burning the fats and limbs of the korbanos of Shabbos and any korbanos are kosher all night. And yet, he wouldn't wait until after Shabbos. They wouldn't wait till after Shabbos to burn them because they want to do the mitzvah right away on time, right as they're offering the korbanos. Reb Shimon lo shmiya lo nu. Reb Shimon, is he unaware of the shita of his father, Reb Shimon, that chaviva mitzvah b'shaita? So Reb Shimon, technically you can hold like Rebbe, that you can harvest the barley, you could harvest the Omer during the day, and still it would override Shabbos because Chaviva mitzvah b'shaita. Ela shiny awesome, to which the Gemara says, no. We are misunderstanding that brisa. That brisa where Reb Shimon says Chaviva mitzvah b'shaita, that is not a reason to be doche Shabbos milichatchila. It's not like, how do we know that mitzvahs are doche Shabbos? Because Chaviva mitzvah b'shaita, mitzvahs are so beloved on time, it even overrides Shabbos. No, that's not a reason to override Shabbos in and of itself. It could be, a reason, kind of a supporting reason, but that it won't be the main reason. Shabbos was already nidche by korbanos. You already slaughtered the korban on Shabbos, korban tamid, musafin. You already slaughtered Shabbos was already nidche. The Torah already says, offer the korban tamid and offer the musafin, as we're going to see later in a few minutes, on Shabbos. And you're already slaughtering them on Shabbos. By the time it comes to burning the ekter chalav and nevarim, Shabbos was already nidche. You already slaughtered the korbanos on Shabbos. Now the shaila is, the korban is already docha Shabbos. I already slaughtered the korban. I already did the zrikas dam of the korban. The question is now, I want to do ekter chalav and nevarim now. Do I do it now, or do I wait till Motzei Shabbos? I'd rather do it now. So we say, you know what? Look, Shabbos is already nidche. You already did shchita on Shabbos. So we say, you know what? Chaviv mitzvah b'shaita. Again, it's not like Milichatchila was saying, because of Chaviv mitzvah b'shaita, I want to be doche. Shabbos was already nidche for this korban. The Torah already says, offer the korban tamid, offer the musafin on Shabbos. It's already nidche, done deal. And therefore, once already Shabbos is nidche, so then because of Chaviv mitzvah b'shaita, we say, don't wait till Motzei Shabbos to burn them. You're already allowed to do shchita, do the aktaris emurim as well. However, Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon would argue, when it comes to harvesting the Omer on Motzei Yom Tov Harishon of Pesach, when you're not, anyways, at least not at this point. Tomorrow, the following day, you're going to be burning the komets of the Omer and the Mizbeach. But right now, at this point, Shabbos was not yet nidche for this mitzvah of harvesting the Omer. And therefore, you're coming to me and saying, Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon is making the argument that if we would say that you can harvest the Omer during the day, and therefore, really, so therefore the question is, if you can harvest the Omer during the day, shouldn't you do it before Shabbos? And that way you won't be docha Shabbos to harvest the Omer. After all, Rabbi Akiva says if you could do it before Shabbos, you should do it before Shabbos. And now says Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon, you're coming to me and saying, well, because of Chaviva mitzvah b'shaita, we should override Shabbos. No, Chaviva mitzvah b'shaita is not a reason to milichatchila override Shabbos. If we could do it before Shabbos, and therefore when it comes to harvesting the Omer and Motzei Yom Tov Harishon, there won't be any Chilul Shabbos. I don't really like using that word in this context, but we won't have to be docha Shabbos for any reason otherwise. Well, then because of Chaviva mitzvah b'shaita, we're not now going to be docha Shabbos so that we can harvest the Omer at night if we could have harvested it during the day. So again, when it comes to the korban tamid, it was already nidche because of the shchita and everything else. So we say, fine, in that case, because of chaviv mitzvah b'shaita, you can also do ekter chalav mevarim. Here, we wouldn't have any other reason to be doche Shabbos to harvest the Omer, and therefore it should be done before Shabbos. Chaviv mitzvah b'shaita won't be a reason to override Shabbos in and of itself. It could be a supportive reason if already Shabbos is nidche. So again, Elashayni also, it's different when it comes to the Talmud, to the Musafin, Sharei, Dochsa Shchita Shabbos. You're already being Docha Shabbos for the Shchita. And therefore now you're just, now you're moving on to Ekter Chalav Mevarim, that's okay. Ula Rebbe, Hachinami, Dochsa Shchita Shabbos. So back to Rebbe now. So then why would Rebbe say that harvesting the Omer is Docha Shabbos? It should be done before Shabbos, and because of Chaviv mitzvah b'shaita, that's not enough of a reason to say that harvesting the Omer should be docha Shabbos l'chatchila. Elo kasav Rebbe k'tzir Omer lo dachya Shabbos. Rather, as a what's it called, a change of a turn of events, all of a sudden a big announcement comes Rebbe, and he says, actually, Rebbe says that harvesting the Omer is not doche Shabbos, it should be done before Shabbos. Since harvesting the Omer can be done during the day, it should be done before Shabbos, like Rabbi Kiva says. And Chaviv Mitzvah B'Shaita is not enough to be doche Shabbos. Vilo? Wait, 1 second. Does Rebbe really hold that? What about the Mishnah earlier in the parak? What about the fact that the Chacham said earlier in the parak that whether the harvest of the Omer is happening on Shabbos or during the week, it's always 3 sah. Delo Rebbe. Rebbe disagrees because the harvest would not happen on Shabbos. What about the fact that the Chacham say that whether during the week, whether on Shabbos, 3 people, 3 baskets, 3 sickles, also, unlike Rebbe would say that the Omer is not harvested on Shabbos. What about on Motzei Shabbos, the whole spectacle where you have the ringleader is saying, "Is it Shabbos?" And they say, "Yes, it's Shabbos." Again, Dilo, Rebbe, that would be unlike Rebbe. Rebbe says, since the Omer can be harvested during the day, it would have to be done in advance, prior to Shabbos. It would not be doche Shabbos. Like Rabbi Kiva says, anything that can be done before Shabbos needs to be done before Shabbos. You can drink a shtick of water and we'll go weiter. So now, Fragli Gemara, Niktar Bayom, kosher, v'doches a Shabbos. But one second. We just had a big turnaround, an about face, and we said, you know what? Rebbe says harvesting the Omer is not doches Shabbos. However, did we not say that the Mishnah is the opinion of Rebbe? Did we not say that the Brisa from earlier on today's daf is the opinion of Rebbe? That when it says Niktar Bayom kosher, that harvesting during the day is kosher, that's the opinion of Rebbe, v'doches ha-Shabbos, and it's also doche Shabbos. So how could Rebbe now turn around and say that harvesting the Omer is not doche Shabbos? Man shamas le de Omer niktar bayom kosher. Who's the opinion who says that harvesting during the day is kosher? Rebbe. V'katoni doches ha-Shabbos. And it also says in the Mishnah and the Brisa that not only can you harvest the Omer during the day, but also that it's doche Shabbos. My lab, Katsira, is that not talking about harvesting the Omer? That you could harvest the Omer during the day, and you could also harvest the Omer on Shabbos? Lo, la'akrava. No, it means burning the komets. Rebbe says that the harvesting of the Omer would have to be before Shabbos, but the burning of the komets on the 16th during the day, that is done even on Shabbos. It's offered even on Shabbos. Aval Katsira, lo. But not harvesting. Harvesting would have to be done before Shabbos. But V'atana, we learn in a Brisa. Rebbe Omer, says Rebbe, Vaydaber Moshes me'adei Hashem. At the end of the 23rd chapter of the book of Leviticus, in Parshas Emor, Perek Chav Gimel, where it talks about all of the festivals, at the very end of that chapter, verse 43, this is a chapter that from the outset, from the beginning of the chapter, from verse 1, it is talking about the Mo'adim. It's talking about all of the festivals and the Korbanos and all sorts of stuff. There it talks about the Omer, it talks about the Shtei Alechem, it talks about all sorts of things. And then at verse 44 it says, Vayidaber Moshes me'adei Hashem. Moshe spoke about the Mo'adim. Matam Lomer. Why? Why do we need that pasuk? Yeah, I know Moshe spoke about the Mo'adim. For 43 verses, we talked about the Mo'adim. Why at the very end are we saying, Vayidaber Moshe me'adei Hashem? We know. 43 psukim worth we know. Matam Lomer, I'll tell you why it says that. By the Korban Tamid, it says, right, it's Korban ilachmi liishai, reach nichochi tishmru, lakriv li b'mo ado, at its proper time. Also by the Korban Pesach, it says, Vayasu b'nei Yisrael Pesach b'mo ado. That means, b'mo ado v'afilu b'Shabbos, it means even on Shabbos, b'mo ado v'afilu b'tumah, it means even b'tumah. So we know that b'mo ado by Korban Tamid, and we know that by Korban Pesach. Shar Korbanos Hatzibur Minayin. How do we know the other Korbanos Hatzibur? Well, it says in Parshas Pinchos, in Sefer Bamidbar, chapter 29 of the book of Numbers, it says, by all the Musafin there, Minayin Talmud Lomar, Eile Taisul Hashem b'moadechem. It says at the end of chapter 29 of the book of Numbers, at the end of Perek Chavtes of Sefer Bamidbar, it says there in verse 39, at the end of the chapter, Eletaisu la'Hashem b'moadechem, that these are yudu b'moadechem. So even right, so basically in Sefer in Parshas Pinchas, in Prakim Chavtes, the Torah talks there about all the different musafin, including the musaf of all the musafin, Rosh Chodesh, Shavuos, Sukkot, everything. And it says, and that is to say that all of these musafin also are offered on Shabbos and Betumah. However, you know what's not talked about there in Parshas Pinchas? The Shtei Lechem and the Omer. Those are back in Parshas Emor, in Vayikra. The Rabbos Omer, where am I? Minayin the Rabbos Omer v'Akar v'Imo. How do we know that even the Omer and the keves that's offered with it, Shtei Lechem v'Akar v'Imo, and the Shtei Lechem and the Kivsei Atzeres that are offered with them, how do we know that they are also Docha Shabbos and Docha Tumah? Talmud Omer, that's why we have that verse at the end of the Perek there, the Pasuk Mem Daled, in Perek Chav Gimel of Sefer Vayikra, Vayidaber Moshe es Me'adei Hashem. That's why we have Vayidaber Moshe es Me'adei Hashem, HaKosuv Kavah Moed Lechulon, and we say Moed for all of them, including the Omer and the Shtei Alechem. The Omer and the Shtei Alechem are also Doche Shabbos and also Doche Tumah. Now, Lemai, to what end? To what end are the Omer and the Shtei Lechem Doche Shabbos? Ilem la krova, if you're going to tell me to offer them on the Mizbeach. The problem with that is, Shtei Lechem b'nei krova ninu, we don't offer the Shtei Lechem on the Mizbeach. The Omer, sure, there's a comment that's burned on the Mizbeach. The Shtei Lechem is not offered on the Mizbeach. It's eaten by the Kohanim. Elapshita letrina ve'arkada v'dekavosa gabe Omer lektsira. Rather, it must be, therefore, that what does it mean that the Omer and the Shtei Lechem are Docha Shabbos? Well, by the Shtei Lechem, it means that you can grind the flour for it on Shabbos, you can sift it on Shabbos, which, by the way, we're going to learn in a Mishnah in the 11th parak. You see, in the Mishnayos, this parak that we're learning now, the 6th parak of Masechta Menachos in the Gemara, is actually the 10th parak of in the Mishnayos, and right after that is the parak Shtei Alechem. For some reason in the Gemara it's divided up. So here we're going to get to it a little later in the 11th parak. There's a Mishnah which actually says that the Shtei Alechem is prepared in advance from Erev Shavuos. But anyways, we're saying now that we want to say that the grinding that the Shtei Alechem was baked on Shavuos, and that it was ground, that the wheat was ground and sifted on Shavuos, even if it's on Shabbos. And what would be similar by the Omer? The harvesting of the barley would be even on Shabbos. New. So we see that the Omer and the Shtei Lechem are Doche Shabbos. And what does it mean? It means the harvesting of the Omer is Doche Shabbos. The Kadachis Shabbos, we're saying the harvest is Doche Shabbos. And this is Rebbe, right? This is Vatani, Rebbe Omer. This is Rebbe's price. No, Omer la'akrava. No. The Omer harvesting, according to Rebbe, is not Doche Shabbos. It has to be done before Shabbos. The burning of the komets is Doche Shabbos. V'shtei Alechem, what about by the Shtei Alechem? Le'afiyah, baking the Shtei Alechem. You bake the Shtei Alechem on Shabbos. Again, there's a Mishnah later on that says that the Shtei Alechem is not baked on Shabbos. It's baked on Erev Shavuos. And if Shavuos is a Sunday, which means that Erev Shavuos is a Shabbos, they would be baked on Friday. So we have a Mishnah there which clearly would be unlike Rebbe. But Rebbe is saying, however, that the Shtei Alechem is baked on Shabbos. And that is where we're going to hold things. We're going to ask some questions now. We'll get to the end of the parak. But that's basically we'll ask some technical questions. But in terms of our answer, so Rebbe says that Omer and Shtei Alechem are Doche Shabbos. What does it mean? It means that the burning of the komets of the Omer is Doche Shabbos according to Rebbe. The harvesting of the Omer, though, is not Doche Shabbos. It would be done before Shabbos since it doesn't have to be done at night. Rebbe says in terms of the Shtei Alechem, what is Doche Shabbos by the Shtei Alechem? Obviously not burning on the Mizbeach, because it's not burnt on the Mizbeach. It is the baking of the Shtei Alechem is Doche Shabbos. because of a Rebbe, that Rebbe holds Toner Mekadesh, that Rebbe holds that the oven, that the Shtei Alechem, we're focusing on the Shtei Alechem now till the end of for the next few lines until the end of the parak. In terms of Omer, we've satisfied what we need with the Omer. That Rebbe holds that the oven that the Shtei Alechem was baked in would be Mekadesh the Shtei Alechem, and therefore, since it's Mekadesh the Shtei Alechem, it can't be baked in advance. The Afila Me'esmol, if it would be baked from before Yom Tiv or before Shabbos, if Sulala Bidlina, it would be puzzled that night, Bidlina, since it would become Kadosh already in the oven. And therefore it needs to be baked on Shavuos itself, and if it's Shabbos, it's Doche Shabbos. V'savar Rebbe Toner Mekadesh, but 1 second, does Rebbe in fact hold that the oven is Mekadesh the Shtei HaLechem? V'atani, we learn in a Baraisa, Kibsei Atzeres Ein Mekadshin Es HaLechem El B'Shchita. That when do the Shtei HaLechem become Kadosh? When the Kivsei Atzeres, when the sheep that are offered with it are slaughtered. Again, Kivsei Atzeres in Mekadshin Es HaLechem El B'Shchita. The slaughter of the Kivsei Atzeres is what's Mekadesh the Shtei HaLechem. Ketzad how? So Shochet on the Shman V'Zark Dam on the Shman. If properly, correctly, the Kivsei Atzeres are slaughtered and Zrikas Adam the Lishman, Kadesh HaLechem, the Lechem is Kadosh. Shachat on Shelo Lishman V'Zark Shadam and Shelo Lishman. If everything was done Shelo Lishman, Lo Kadesh HaLechem, the Lechem is not Kadosh. Shachat on the Shman V'Zark Dam and Shelo Lishman, HaLechem Kadosh Ve'enu Kadesh. And if the Kivsei Atzeres were slaughtered Lishman, but the Zrikas Adam was Shelo Lishman, so then it's kind of Kadosh and not Kadosh. It was a whole kind of tricky discussion on Daf Mem Zayin. Anyways, Divrei Rebbe, that's Rebbe's opinion. Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, Omer says, Rabbi Elazar, Shimon, the Olam Einu Kadosh, they're not Kadosh, Acher Yishchol Dishman, Vizok Tam Dishman. You have to do the Shchita and the Zrikas Adam Dishman in order for the Shtei Alechem to be Kadosh. So what do we see? We see that Rebbe says that baking of the Shtei Alechem is not what makes them Kadosh. It's not the oven that makes it Kadosh. It's after that. It's the Shchita of the Kivsei Atzeres that makes it Kadosh. Amar Nachman by Yitzchak, Hukbeu v'lo hukbeu kamer hadron Allah Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Nachman bar Yitzchak says, no, they are already Kadosh according to Rabbi. According to Rabbi, baking the Shtei Alechem, the oven, makes them Kadosh. What are we saying about the Kivsei Atzeres? What we're saying about the Kivsei Atzeres is that until the Kivsei Atzeres are slaughtered, the Shtei Alechem are not locked in with any particular sheep. That even if you designate sheep to be for the Kivsei Atzeres, you could still swap them out for other, the Shtei Alechem are not locked in with those particular sheep until they're slaughtered with the intention of being for Kivsei Atzeres for the Shtei Alechem. At that point, they're locked in, they can't be swapped out for any others. Now, the Shtei Alechem are already Kadosh from the time that they're baked. In terms of hukbeu, in terms of being locked in with particular sheep, that's what happens at the Shchita, that they're slaughtered, Lishma, and then they get locked, they become connected with those Shtei Alechem. Hadron Allah, Rabbi Yishmael. We'll come back to Parak, Rabbi Yishmael. Friends, that was Daf Ayin Beis, Daf 72 of Masechta Menachos. We wrapped up the 6th Parak of Masechta Menachos. We talked about Omer, okay fines. Things like the Omer should be standing. If you don't have standing and it's lying down, fine. The Omer should be soft and squishy. If it's from far away and it's hard, that's also fine. It should be harvested at night. If it's harvested during the day, it's fine. At least according to that brisa. Obviously, we saw it's a whole big machlokas. If it had to be offered betuma, fine. If it's offered on Shabbos, fine. I don't know if I missed other things, but those, right? We learned about a whole bunch of Omer okay fines. In addition, of course, to if you need to harvest the Omer in order to for the Beis HaMedrash or the Avelim or for Kilayim, whatever it is. Okay. And then for the main sugya of today's daf, the big sugya, harvesting the Omer during the day and on Shabbos, and those two things are interconnected. Rebbe says the Omer can be harvested during the day, it doesn't have to be harvested at night, and therefore because the Omer can be harvested during the day, well then you should harvest it during the day before Shabbos, and harvesting the Omer does not over at Shabbos. Offering the Omer, burning the kometz on the mizbeach is docha Shabbos, sure, but the harvesting, since it can be done during the day, it should be done before Shabbos. So as Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon says that the Omer must be harvested at night, and because it must be harvested at night, and it can't be harvested any other time, it is Doche Shabbos. Friends, that was Daf Ayin Beis, Daf 72 of Masechta Menachos. Hope you enjoyed. Have a great, great day. Cheers.